Are we truly alone in the universe? Years ago, I saw some bizarre lights in the sky, and my curiosity was piqued. This led me down a rabbit hole to discover who these visitors might be and where they might come from. On my journey, I found out that many other people were having these direct encounters with beings from other dimensions, and that I too could communicate with them directly. All right, happy Friday. Different to be doing a channeling session on Friday, but super excited that we still have the opportunity to talk with Ryan because we missed him last week due to some technical stuff, storms and whatnot. But Ryan, welcome back. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you, and thanks for having me back. And hello to everyone, a lot of new faces here. And I just want to thank you all for having the time to come here and then speak on my journey, and perhaps some messages will come through. And yeah, and thank you for sparing your time too for being here as well.
Yeah. Well, speaking of journeys, you've just before the call, we were talking and you said things have evolved. Your channeling has evolved. Your journey, you've been on a journey and it's evolved. So tell us what's been going on since, I can't believe I just looked it up. It was early 2023 when we had you on, and I'm like, where did the time go? How did it go by so fast?
Yeah. I looked back too when we first did the first channeling together. And like you said, it's like, where did the time go? And then also when you're in your own journey, it can seem like time is forever, especially when you're hitting, these thresholds of trying to push through these next so-called evolutions in our life and our so-called, development. But yeah, since we last spoke, it's been a lot. And I'm sure many of you have probably felt it too, right? Where there's just a lot of external noise that's been going on and so many different versions of the world, whether it be internally, externally, spiritually, political, all these things that are going on. And I kind of got to this point where, I was asking more deeply for guidance. And so as I was channeling, like Ashtar or sometimes Metatron would come through, or my spirit team, it just kept asking me for something deeper. And I couldn't really figure it out. And there was parts of me that were getting like a little bit frustrated because then you hear like, all these other ways of doing things, all these other people who are moving forward on their journey. And sometimes you can feel a bit stuck. And so I was kind of hitting this moment where I said, okay, well, I definitely feel a little bit ungrounded at the moment. So I like postpone a lot of, channeling services, energy work, because I wanted to make sure before I could offer that me, myself as a practitioner is grounded in who I am and what I'm here to offer. And so as I asked for deeper guidance, it went silent, as I'm sure a lot of you have experienced that part before. And
Wait,
so,
the channeling
as I
aspect
was,
went silent, or the voices, the guidance went silent?
yeah, the guidance kind of went silent.
Mm.
So there's moments where I just wouldn't receive anything. And I felt like, oh, perhaps maybe, we get those kind of dialogues in our head, like, oh, did I do something wrong or something going on? And so when I just really sat with myself, that was actually what was the message, was
Mm.
that I needed to be in silence.
Right.
And so when I tuned into that and I just kind of really shut off everything, and everything was now about going inward towards myself and listening to the inner guidance, and listening to like the nuances that my body would have, like different shifts energetically or physically, as I would ask these questions internally, and then I would suddenly feel like a shift in my body. It was almost where it was like a yes or a no confirmation in a way.
Mm.
And, fast forward as I was starting to deepen that part of myself, which haven't experienced before, all of a sudden, I just started getting these questions of like, well, right, there's these other consciousness, these other energies, these beings that are guiding us, helping us, are part of us. And so I said, well, what is, these differences when we're talking about everything is coming from source, from, the universe, depending on what we believe in, God. or the creator? And so I said, what are the reasons for having these expressions? If wouldn't it make sense to just go straight directly to the source, quote unquote,
Right.
to make a clear line of communication without the so-called noise coming through? And so I was asking that question quite a bit internally and externally too. I would ask people who I knew who were very well versed in the spiritual community and also were channelers, energy healers, and connecting to a lot of different beings. And no one could really give me a straight answer. And so that was, I said, okay, this is probably something for me that I had to individually start taking on and seeing. And so I just started sitting in meditation and kept asking daily what was the reasoning. And slowly these pieces would start coming together where I would either meet people who'd give me, you'd have these conversations, all of a sudden they say something and then it just like clicked, like, oh, okay, there's one piece. And then there'd be other moments where I would get this dialogue that would say, like, ask this question instead and see how it feels in your body.
Mhm.
And so as I started asking questions in different ways, different variations, I suddenly started reading books or hearing other people who had this similar kind of question that they were asking. And everything started leading back to connecting to the higher self or, the soul aspects of ourselves. And then it suddenly hit me that that was what was being asked of me to really connect with when there was so much noise, even in the spiritual world, where, we had this flood where spirituality became such a commercialized commodity now. And it became very, very hard to distinguish who was actually speaking things from their heart versus who was really good at marketing and just knew how to, draw people in, as unfortunately we've seen. And and then for myself too, I said, well, how do I not become like that? How do I make sure I stay pure of heart and make sure when I'm in service, I'm in pure alignment with what my soul is asking me to do to be in service of the collective? And so as I kept asking those things, it was just really about just tuning in with yourself. And as I began to tune in more and more with myself, the outside noise got quieter and everything suddenly became very still again. And I became very sure once again of the direction I was heading, how to be of service again in this so-called new iteration and new understandings. And now how do I use these lessons to help guide people in a supportive container and space where I can meet them exactly where they are at in their journey, no matter whatever beliefs, religions, backgrounds they came from, and help guiding them to understand which part of themselves is the noise that's speaking and is being heard or wants to express itself versus which is the part, the pure essence of you, the so-called the heart or the soul of you that wants to be expressed. And so it was a lot of understanding that within myself. And then suddenly everything just started falling back together. And, I started now understanding why all those moments where I had so much confusion and frustration. And I was learning, like I was starting to become susceptible to the outside noise too. So I'm just grateful that I had those so-called checks and balances on myself and listening to it to say, hey, like let's put a pause and now let's start tuning back in to see what this so-called next iteration of yourself is. And from there, I even started to really learn, right? Even as simple as something as the word love. And as we have channeled before, and when I've met up with your in your CES groups, right? We were always talking about the love frequency to call these beings in. And even then, I asked, right? Are we truly understanding what that means when we are calling in love frequency? What is that word love?
Mhm.
Because even now it's been very skewed. And so, how do we feel that within ourselves? And so, as I asked even that, that's when I started meeting other people who dived very deeply into the concepts or just the word itself, love. And so I was very thankful to meet with people within a men's retreat, one person named Kevin Walton, and one person who I'm working in their groups named Paul Check. And so they really advocate, right, living a life full of love. But then to do that, you have to have a very deep understanding of what love is and how love can be mistaken for like all the great things that happen in our life. And then, but also understanding when we truly love something, and if, right, we are part of source, God, the creator, that is unconditional love, so to say, then it can be confrontational too at moments. Because when we're talking about love, when we do love something, we want the best for it. And if we are asking, right, our guides, our angels, our higher selves that to love me and to guide me with love, we forget at moments that it can mean that they have to course correct us. And so when we forget those aspects of love, we think we're being punished.
Right.
We're, being struck down, like, oh no, right? And so as I started to really understand more of these concepts, and then asking again myself, right, is this true for me in my stage of my journey, and helping understand this so then I can then help others understand. And that was when the other parts of, right, the moments where I'd have these energetic shifts, or suddenly my physical body would have these shifts. And it was just this constant, like, yes, like we have to go through these much, much deeper understandings of, these concepts that we talk about. And so then from there, it was now, okay, now how do I begin to start living a life that's fully authentic and also loving for not only me, and then extending that beyond myself to the community. Um, and that started involving like taking care of myself much better physically too, as well as understanding that is a part of love, and understanding that if we are to love the divine within us, then that means we should love our body too as well. And understanding how, right, as we pour love into that, then our physical body, which is the vessel that we've chosen to be, that antenna, just becomes so much more sharper, so much more in tune with all the subtleties that are within us too as well. And then from there, it just like expands, and it just keeps expanding, expanding. And I was starting to see just like the correlations between the two, back and forth, back and forth. And I would notice people who are very, very good at taking care of both simultaneously, just what a different life, a different presence they had about them. And the way they, even engaged in multidimensionality, spirituality, because they're so rooted and grounded within their own physical vessel first, their so-called ego of who they are. When they do venture off into the void, into these multidimensional spaces, they don't lose themselves, and they don't become caught up in everything that's happening up here simultaneously, because they can look at this area, and then suddenly come back down and say, okay, I'm still, Ryan, I'm still Ruben.
Mhm.
Go off again and say, okay, now I see all these aspects, all these different possibilities. And then from what I am seeing, what can I bring precisely that I need from these aspects, these different dimensions or energies or consciousness, back into my present ego of Ryan or Ruben, so to say.
Yep.
And so as I was doing that, understanding that more, and doing that throughout my sessions, then came right back to my question of, why are we not just all imbued with that power or that tool ingrained in us to go directly to source or to creator right from the get-go? So what was the reasoning for us to kind of traverse in this way, as so-called the steps to climbing back up into, right, understanding our divine selves and all these multidimensionally aspects and consciousness that do exist? And that was when, the silence kind of broke and all these answers started coming, and I was getting visuals of like how we use arrows, we use the cross, we use Sanskrit, right? Buddha, Yeshua, whichever, we follow, that at least for this human race, where we're at this level, we do need that symbology because, right, just like letters, when we form them together, they become words, they become vibration, but we have to give meaning to it to understand it at, our ego level, basically.
Right.
And so that was, it just suddenly everything just started hitting me. And so that gave me the tools to start talking to people much better at where they are with their journey, because now understanding that everything that they're looking at, it's such an energetic symbol for them. And so then now it was starting to decode this of like, okay, this is this symbol, it has this effect with people. Tarot cards, all the different decks we have. It's just all the different symbologies that are tuning into whatever frequency this individual or the collective at that moment may need to see in order to at least spark some type of awakening, you can say, or some type of contemplative thought to help open up and access now this greater parts of them. And so that was like kind of like my like, oh, another aha moment. And I said, okay, now we can keep the ball rolling. And now I know, like, you have those moments where you're like, oh, I'm not losing it. I'm actually just getting more knowledge. And then, now just practicing that more and more every day, and even learning as we're pouring love into our food and into our water, how that in return is love poured back into our bodies. And then from there, it just keeps flowing outward. And then oddly enough, right when everything was coming together, clicking back again, then that was when you messaged me, say, hey, you want to come back onto the show?
Oh, wow. I didn't realize the timing was so on par there. I wanted to back up and just sort of reiterate. Yeah. Thank you for that reflection and reminder, because that's been my journey as well, going into the ET space initially with the show and listening to different so-called ET channelers, right? That are channeling, um, from this star system or that star system and these archetypes and that thing. And then talking to other people and hearing the different nuances of, that this person's experience from this star system. The basic archetypes might be the same, but there's different nuances, but then not getting too caught up on those nuances and being flexible with, um, you know, listening to the transmissions. And because what I've noticed, there's certain people in the community, and hopefully you guys watching here notice that I try to not get too hyper focused on one thing or another, because when you do, you lose a lot of the great messages that could be coming from everybody's unique perspective. And to have that more relaxed, bigger, I don't know, how do I say, eye or viewpoint on all the different storylines that are out there, because there isn't a one way or a one language. We're all looking at things through our unique lenses, and they're all valid. They're all valid lenses. So to be unconditional in your stance and viewpoint of all this information, I think is, it's important. It's part of the work.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely is. And I think that was one of the reasons why, like I felt resonated with your work so much too, as well, is because you take so many different viewpoints, and, you know, you're you're always understanding that, right? To be of service to as well is to offer the tools and let whoever is listening, whoever is viewing, then they get to decide. Like I can't remember the exact quote, but I think you might, right, from Bruce Lee, where he's talking about you have all these different disciplines, but you take what's useful for you and then you disregard the rest.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
ultimately and then he finishes with saying, ultimately make it your own.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like this is, a big time now for a lot of people to begin to make it their own. Um, and I think the trouble was, at least what I was witnessing with the community around me, is that when we're making it our own, I think people are forgetting that when they ask themselves, right, how do I make it my own? Are they, where is the intention coming from?
Mhm.
And I feel like that has been, I don't know how you've seen it, but I feel like especially in the spiritual community within the last year or two, I feel like that's been diluted quite a bit.
Yeah.
And now it needs to like ramp up again with really asking deeply within ourselves, right? Why are we stepping into these spaces, and what are we making it that is our own? And if it is coming from a place of, our heart, or is it now like a so-called rebranded version or recycled version of another, business, or, another like marketing thing, that we've seen here and there, and, all that jazz.
Yeah, and when there's nothing wrong with, uh, adding your own spin or marketing or whatever. But I think what happens is where this information, or at least the journey into the spirituality, into going inward, right? That ultimately what you did is what you said. I think that's the spiritual journey is unique for each of us, and it's a story or a journey of going within. And when you have all of these outside world constructs that are about the material, look at here, do this, and this sort of the game that we play in our day-to-day lives of, marketing this product or that product, or, selling this, and, commerce. It's a
Yeah.
it's its own like thing. Um and then trying to combine those worlds. And some people do it brilliantly and have a nice balance, and sometimes it gets too swayed this way, and the inner messages that are trying to come through that inner journey are lost or washed through the marketing schemes. But there are some people that, that are able to ride that tightrope very well and have good results. But it's been for myself too, it's been a balancing act. It's a lot of work just to keep getting the messages out and trying to go out there and do this. And it's like, I just want to go in and meditate. Like, I don't want to do that. I just want to sit in meditation for hours and do my own inner journey. Um, so having that balance. So I think it's healthy to take a break, like what you're saying, taking some time off to go within is, I think every person in your position or my position or anybody out there needs to do that. We had Widika, who was on a couple weeks ago, channeling Arjun, and she also was sort of talking about how she doesn't understand how the podcasters and how people can just keep this regular schedule, and even myself trying to keep a regular schedule going, because for her her work is so fluid and in and out, and she has to feel it um at an emotional level to be able to offer the service, as you're saying, as a channeler. It's not so mathematically rhythmic, this work of inner journeys, that you can just say, okay, we're gonna do this now, and every Sunday we're gonna do this, and which we've been doing on every Sunday. But it's on the from the channeler's perspective, I think it's even more difficult to have that regimented schedule compared to, you know, a regular 9 to 5 job. And the teachings that we're getting from it they're teaching us, get out of your normal schedules, break it up, do things differently. We're moving into an era where we're supposed to be more in the flow and things. So as consumers, hopefully the consumer also will evolve and be more understanding of this new uh, flow that create content creators and channelers and message deliverers will be able to flow with things as needed, to be like water.
Yes, exactly.
Both
Yeah.
as the content creator and the consumer.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, even when I see your emails, I'm always thinking too, I'm like, "Man, how's Ruben going at it, like, nonstop?"
Yeah. Well, it's for me, I feel like it's a contract. I put out, people sign up for the membership and they're getting I made a promise I'd do this. So I feel like, that motivates me to honor that. And, I'm trying to honor the timing of everything here. So, we're last month I came out and said, or at the beginning of the month, I said, hey guys, we're gonna be taking a hiatus. So again, just kind of being transparent and I have a great community here, so they're very understanding of of everything. So far, you guys have been great. I just, super supportive. So in return, I want to support back in other ways and just have clear communication and honor any agreements that I put out there. And yeah, so that's what keeps me going.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's great. It's always like I feel the great intention, the purity of every time like you're putting things out and especially, I think the one thing I really loved about the way you do your interviews too and how you set up your community, it's like you said, it's very transparent and I always feel like there's none of this you know, ways of like, oh, how can I sway this to kind of shift this way? It's like we just let it be and then let's see how things come out.
Absolutely. So you said your channeling had turned on. Are you familiar with Louise Kay? She's been on the show. It's been a while, but she's out in the UK. She channeled, and just your story reminds me of hers, where she went into a channeling session. She had booked sort of booked it, and she was in India, and tried to go into the channeling state and they didn't come through. And it was like the first time. And then she was like, oh, and then she basically tried to connect and she just got in meditation that, yeah, we're done. We're
Oh
going.
wow.
Yeah. So, but she's just had to stop channeling. And, and I wondered how many other channelers that had happened to, because, another, a Bashar channel or Elon, Andrew Bjork, I'm not saying, I don't think I'm saying his last name right, but he used to channel Bashar and also in the early mid 90s. And he also just stopped. It stopped coming through for him. So I was just, it was just interesting. I've heard that story before. It hasn't happened that many times, but there's been a few out there that it just stopped coming through. So then it's like, okay, universe is telling us to change direction and move into a different field or, she still is doing meditations and, guiding people on their spiritual path, but not in the channeling sense anymore.
Yeah, that's really interesting you said that because I think there were moments as I was, you know, going back within myself, I asked, "Oh, is this kind of like it, right? Does this part of this modality kind of served my part in this journey?" And and I did get a very good sense that it was coming near, but not I don't know when exactly. Who knows? Maybe you may be the last one, and
Well, I
after
hope
that's
not. Don't put that pressure on me.
I go out with, being on a great show, right? But,
Oh man, no,
uh,
we'll make sure we keep it going. But so I'm curious when it returned, how did you find it, or how did it come back?
it's suddenly it suddenly just happened.
Mm,
Um, so and I felt the strong lesson for me in that was that I was always, in this mode or in this direction of connecting. And I think what happened was that it really took me out of just some of the present day-to-day moments that were happening.
mm,
And so I was losing that, how do I put it? Like that magic that you can just embrace in the things that are here with you in the now. And so could because, I was starting to say like, "Oh, well, I'm not connecting, maybe something's wrong." And, that pulls you away from just where you are right now. And so being able not to easily connect as I did before, it allowed me to just be much more grateful of like everything that was around me. And then I'm in a place where there's a lot of nature too. So it was like a reminder, oh well, you're connecting to all these beings that are out there. What about here? What about Mother Earth? What about the plants? Even what about connecting with your fellow, humans? What about connecting with the divinity within them, the soul within them? And it was just that reminder after all that that is what we're here for, is to help each other on this humanity level. But then it was like if you're always so focused up here, up there, it was like you're forgetting the picture down here. And then it was going back to like that balance, like you said, right? Of now, okay, I'm connecting up there, I may be receiving something or something comes in. And now how do I interpret that or right package that into a way where now people here can understand it at a much more general level, and then they can apply it in the way they need to in order to have that so-called oh aha moment. And as I started thinking about that again, then the inner dialogue started coming back as this it was first about. Now it was, okay, well, how can I help this person or maybe this group here? And then I would go out on walks and just really connect with the land and nature and be grounded here. Then things would start coming back. And even now I notice when I would go on long runs, sometimes it would come in just by going like I guess, like a meditative jog.
Yeah.
When I would reach this point where, you get to that point where your body's so tired that you're just kind of like breathing for air and your mind doesn't have enough time to think about other things. And it's just in that very present moment, I would suddenly just get these pores of just streams, or I would even be feeling perhaps what other people may have been feeling, or even what the land was feeling too as well.
Mm.
And it just started happening for me at moments like that.
Interesting. Yeah. It kind of reminds me of my own journey a little bit. There was a time early on in my exploration, I don't know, maybe close to 10 years ago now, where I found out the power of the psychedelic mushroom. And and it was because I had such a hard time sitting still and meditating. And I would, take a small dose and go into the woods, and I would just get all this massive information. And um and I was doing that pretty regularly for a while there, and I was just, like, exploring the universe and going and just, see just it was crazy, all the information in different worlds I would go and explore. And then, I started getting, like, some issues with my knee. I was, like, getting a little bit of shaking, and I sort of meditated, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, I'm abusing this, this, tool." And so, and I went to a doctor too, and like a sort of a metaphysical doctor, and they were like, "Yeah, no more mushrooms for you. They're messing with my nervous system." It was like
Mhm.
it was too much. I was getting too much. I don't know if it was the actual mushrooms doing it, or it was just me sitting in meditation, and I was just getting blown out. So I went cold turkey for a year, and then I meditated, and I connected to the mushroom consciousness without the mushrooms, just sort of meditating and asking them. And they said, "Yeah, you can return to us, but we're teachers, and the information is meant to be shared. So as long as you share the information, then you'll be fine, and don't do it so much." That was kind of the download I got. So then I only made it like once or twice a year special, during special openings and portals, solstices or eclipses and those types of things. And that's been my journey with the mushroom teachers ever since, and it's been fine. But I think there's an aspect of when we make these connections that sharing the information is is a part of the integration, obviously to integrate it as us individually, but I think as a teacher or a guide or a channel, I think, that I think that ultimately a lot of people who may have their own channeling abilities and connections, I think they move into the space of what you're doing and sharing in a public forum. And that's part of the balancing of the having the connection and having access to the information and making it available was kind of, I don't know, I'm just comparing notes here, seeing if that resonates or not.
Yeah, it definitely does. I remember there were moments where when I would receive something for someone and then I was very hesitant, oh, should I share it or not? Is this something I should share? Um, and if I did that a few times, I remember my body physically, it would just feel such a buildup of energy and anxiety. And I felt like a faucet that just if it wasn't released, it was just gonna blow. Um, and I can remember those moments where I kept more quiet about, things I was receiving. It was just like what you said, like I started either having maybe a little bit aches or I would get very antsy. And it would be harder and harder for me to sit in meditation or to drop into meditation. And then I noticed when I was more willing to share things with people, or the way I would approach it was I would just ask like, hey, is it okay if I share a message? Are you in a space to receive something? And then sure enough, if they would say yes, and I would just say these things that I would receive, to them it was like whoa. And like how we see it as we're like, I have no idea what that means to you, or you
Right,
think
right.
I'm just crazy now. you know And but then I would just feel this release from my body, and it would just be totally calm again. And so it's like this cycle of understanding that too, like, okay, that was, the way my body is signaling to me, like, hey, you're starting to build up again. Like, well, we need to start talking about it, or, whatever you're receiving, trust it and just go out and just say it or ask.
That's awesome. You said you've been connecting more with the earth energies in your internal meditations or journeys. Has that has that affected the channeling? Are you connecting to different beings now, or how's that working?
The way it's been working for me hasn't been so much directed towards channeling. It's been, I think, learning about to because I was in the phase two where I was wanting to really deepen my understanding of like nutrition and how we raise our food and how do we actually really treat it. And so during that phase, as I was connecting more to the earth, it was giving me a much more appreciation of just the way that Mother Earth gives us these foods, these commodities, and how, of course, now we are at a greater level of consciousness and awareness where we are becoming more aware of what we are eating, what we are digesting, and how it affects us. But then understanding this whole cycle of how it all starts, from the soil to the plants and then to the animals that eat it and how we eat it and then just keeps going the cycle. It started all fitting together where I was really feeling a lot more intensely if I would eat something that was not the best quality, or whoever was raising it, or farming it did not pour that love and that passion into it, or or that frequency, so to say, into it. And so it was now understanding, okay, you know, we're talking about honoring the earth. We're talking about how everything is one, everything is a piece of source to divinity, but yet we're still kind of unconsciously choosing what we're eating, where we're getting it from, and how much are we actually paying attention to it at that level. And so when I was asking, right, like, and I was a little bit frustrated. I was like, man, I can't just have a more simple diet now or just eat things, right? And so it kind of went back to this lesson of, right, what is this so called love frequency, this love energy that we're using to connect to things beyond us, if right, and if that's the tool we're using. And it was this whole thing of understanding, right? If we're not loving things from the most microscopic level, understanding that now this microscopic thing is the way we're loving that is affecting everything else. And so it kept going back to this macro level of everything is one, but it's separate.
Mhm.
And so it's living in this whole ecosystem. And how do we love something from something as small as a soil? And then understanding when we love the soil at that stage and feeling it, then in turn, the plant can grow with that, all that love, all that nutrients. And then when the animals eat it, it's the same thing. And then when we, it is our turn to go ahead and turn it into, right, the food and the energy we need, how we can feel all that love that's been poured into that cycle and then into us. And then therefore, we can go ahead and live a life that's healthy that allows us to live fully and lovingly. And so it was connecting to all these aspects of the earth and the energies of the earth in that way. And when I was looking at things from all those levels, it was just feeling the right, the understanding and the gratitude of how we are given all these things and what a difference it makes when we just don't take it for granted and we understand this whole cycle.
Yep.
And I could feel, the energy is changing. And when I would, start channeling or get these, downloads or dialogues, understanding things from that level and then pouring it into me, it allowed for a quicker connection, a much clearer connection, concise. And I was finding out I wouldn't have to take too much longer to, meditate or drop in or toning to begin having that connection. Um, and the only, I would say, real channeling thing I had with plants was actually, you know, talking to the plant saying, where would you like to be placed in my room?
Mm.
And so I would experiment with that and then see how right the room flowed much better, or I would see the plants start flourishing too as well. And yeah, right. Other people talk to plants too.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been
Yeah,
there
and because
going
yeah,
back
and it's
there
like
since the spring.
yeah, because it's like when you're talking, you're planning, you're channeling, it's you're talking to that soul aspect of the plant,
Mhm.
and it's just that it's that communication back and forth.
And going back to this idea of you were talking about kind of abandonment, did I do
Mhm.
something wrong if to when the connection stopped? And I think this is uh, Lisa Royale in her work, she talks about a lot about how, uh, back in the day, however many thousands of years, humanity, we had ET contact, we had different civilization, different beings from other civilizations coming and going here. And there was a time, maybe, a lot of the Greek god mythology talks about how the gods were living amongst us, and then they disappeared. So there was a time where the ET, our ET families left us, and instead of humanity taking it as a sign that we need this time to grow and be on our own and not be reliant on our teachers, so to say, um, they instead, humanity took the abandonment. Oh, what do we do wrong? And that's a lot of the religions and stuff were grown out of uh, that idea, as opposed to, oh, maybe the humans need to learn some lessons and we need to like grow up a little bit. So just remind just that correlation. And now we're in this period, and this was actually what I was hoping when we get into the channeling here to discuss all the lights in the skies. I don't know if you've been watching Twitter or even the mainstream news, all the stuff happening in New Jersey, that it seems they are returning. At least the lights at this point, the lights are returning globally. And does this mean humanity has gotten has learned its lessons, or we're getting there? We're getting close, and it's going to be a slow introduction. So lots of little macro and micro reflections to do there.
Yeah, I've been, seeing that too, how everything's been popping up and then right, and it's like the mix with the drones, which one's which, right? And then is it us, is it them, or is it, another organization that's like being
Right.
thrown in the mix?
Right, right. Yeah, it was in Dr. Greer's, he was just doing this on stage thing and somebody posted on YouTube. He, it it it's so funny. So he talks about, the ETs, and he's been part of his spiel is there are no bad ETs, right? So, which I respect, because there's a lot of fear in that world of there's the evil reptilians are going to eat your babies and all that stuff, right? So he sort of takes the stance of if it's negative, it's ours. But now because of Tucker Carlson and others that have been coming out and talking about the extra dimensionals, that the extra dimensionals are the bad guys, and he's sort of put this new label on, that it sort of creating a third outcome that the ETs are good, humans are bad, and the extra dimensionals are more the other. He's giving them that label as a sort of a third idea that some of the things we're seeing are extra dimensional. Um, so it's just interesting the play on language, and then this idea that there's something uh, different out there that could be causing harm. To and I think that's just he's finding language to be a little more flexible with
Yeah.
his message, um, and and also the different belief systems that are out there. Because he's getting invited to shows like I don't know if Tucker's had him on or will be, but those types of bigger news shows that have their own type of religious limited belief system going on as well. So it's just interesting how this is all evolving and how the language is like fine tuning
Yes.
everybody's belief system so we can find the right language to kind of fit everybody, a one size fit all language that everybody can kind of adapt to and be okay with. It's fascinating how we're moving through all this.
Yeah. Yeah. I always, every time I listen to new things, new terms being introduced, it's just, I always think it's funny how us as humans, we're always looking for us like that one universal thing that we all just want to agree on. And then someone's like, oh, wait, like I just discovered something. It's actually, we should call it
Right.
this.
Right. 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 Yeah. I mean, and that's the same with people's interpretations of like Bashar and others. It's everybody gets so hung up on the the words, and it's like, well, and I think what all this is ultimately is it's a lesson in teaching us, because the moment we do get hung up on the words and we start, you know, spinning off in our own belief systems of, okay, well, this means that, and this means this, and he said this, so it must be that. So, so as soon as we go down those rabbit holes, we end up spinning out in our emotions and our feelings and it just gets torn in every direction. And I feel this is part of the training wheels that we're given right now to let go of those attachments of this means that, or he said that and this means this, and it's this is part of our training for the next level.
Yeah, it is. And I feel like you hit the button on that because yeah, right. I mean, how many times I think in our own individual journeys where we felt we really understood something, we really like knew something to the T, to the core, and then something comes along, you're like, oh wow, that kind of opened up a whole new avenue.
Yep.
And then it's like the reality starts shattering a bit, and then right, you start learning new terms, new things, and what you thought was right the ultimate truth, you're like, oh, actually, it's not.
Yep. Yep. And in that state of not knowing keeps, that's like the whole kung fu master filling up the glass of water for the student, and the student's like, no, that's enough. And he just overpours it and it overflows. And he's like, no, that's enough. And he goes, because the cocky student thinks he has all the information. He goes, well, clearly your cup is full. So you have nothing to learn. So having that empty cup keeps us in a state of opening to new things and learning new things. Because once our cup's full, once we think we figured out the universe, then you've actually, you're stuck in that position of, yeah, you figured out the universe, your little tiny bubble of your universe. And when you're closed minded like that, then you don't, the next set of information can't come through.
Yeah, that, yeah, I remember learning some of those lessons early on in my fitness journey. That it was like, even in the fitness journey, I'm sure it's like they battle over which is like the best squat technique,
Right.
which is the best, bicep curl. And when you start broadening your horizons and you be in like different modalities or tools, you see the commonalities, the similarities. And it's like, oh, well, actually, we can cross over and use these things over here. And we can use that over here and actually improve this. And and I feel that, like you said, the journey of humanity as it's raising its consciousness with all these things that are happening, I think definitely trying to teach us that there's a lot more out there than maybe we may perceive. And there's like parts of me that feel it is to break some of, right, like as you said, the belief systems, certain, religions or cultures that are so tightly wound and where it's like, it's just this way, it's just this, it's just this. And then it's like, oh, well, you have now all these events happening and people start questioning and say, oh, well, maybe perhaps this is not it. There is something beyond what I'm seeing, what I'm told. And so it's just opening up like a kid opening up a book for the first time and seeing all the visuals. And now we're trying to see how we can navigate the overstimulation again and be like, okay, I took that in. Now, how do I process that before seeing that one over there?
Yeah, yeah, it's what an amazing time to be alive, and for some of us, we want to take a ride in that spaceship, now or tomorrow, but it's that we must not forget our collective human family and where they're at, and this is everybody's at a different stage, so we're all going to get this at different levels, and I think that's what these lights are part of the journey, part of a slow rollout journey that's gonna be with us for a little while until we can acclimate and, you know, either empty out some of the stuff we don't need anymore and have more room for a cup, or because I think right now people are really full with all the stimulation, like you said, in the sky and political arenas and everything else.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Even just talking to people around, right, our immediate family, and after the holidays, you
Mm,
can really see whose cup is overfilling and needs to be released, and then
yeah,
some who are the cup's completely empty, and they're just like, "Oh, okay." And then, looking at everyone like, "Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. That's interesting."
totally, totally. So, before when we had you on, you brought through Ashtar. Is he still around? Is he still one of your main guys you bring through, or is there any others?
So far, it's still been Ashtar. I still feel his presence when I'm in my meditations. And then lately, as I've been preparing for this meetup,
Mhm.
I have felt a bit of the Anunnaki around me.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Even about half an hour before when I was sitting in meditation, I just kept hearing that word. So see who comes through, and yeah, we'll like we do, flow with it and have some fun with it.
Okay. Well, yeah, let's see. I mean, that speaking of abandonment, I think that story fits well with the Anunnaki. So be interesting if they do decide to come through. Uh or Ashtar, I'm sure he's got a pretty good pulse on that storyline as well.
Yeah.
Well, whenever you're ready, we'll dive in and see where it takes us.
Okay. All right. Cool. So we'll go ahead and just kind of set the space together as a group. So whoever would like to, just go ahead and close your eyes. And let's just go ahead and place our hands to our heart and just beginning to take some nice deep breaths in and out. And just really feeling the body filled up full of air, taking nice, long, deep exhales. And if you can, try to take the inhales and exhales only through the nostrils. And as you're exhaling and you're feeling your body sink in, feel the weight of your body just grounding to the earth, being present in just the now. And then on the next few inhales and exhales, begin to imagine bright white light or green light or whichever energies or colors of energy that you've been working with. As you inhale, visualize it pouring into every single cell of your body, filling it up with unconditional love, feeling just the life force flowing throughout every single part of your body. And when you exhale, visualize that energy being poured into the world, into each and every one of us, to every being, sentient being, and just reciprocating that love back and forth. And at this moment, you may begin to open your eyes or continue to close them, whichever you feel comfortable with. And then I'm just going to start out just with a little bit of toning and asking who would like to come through for us today. Mm, You. And I'm feeling a pretty strong presence of Anunnaki. And so I'm going to ask, see what messages they have for us. Mm, Trust. Trust is humanity's weakest link. Trusting in the government, trusting in the powers that be, trusting in the leaders. Many on earth do not know who to trust, do not know if they should trust the gods they pray to, the religions, the books, those that they look into the sky for answers. We, the Anunnaki collective, are here to remind you that you are of us. You are of divinity. You are of gods. And everything that is going on right now is to stir up the confusion and the turmoil and the inner conflicts that lay within you. As how the internal world is being reflected into your outside world. As you have seen, there's so much confusion happening. And internally, this is what many are feeling. And so what has happened when you feel confused and lost, you look to others for answers. You look to leaders, for those who are in power, who those you have trusted, that you have put in power to lead you and guide you with integrity. But you know that is not the truth. You know that is not what is happening here. And so the lights in the skies, the contacts that have been made, they're here to remind you there's much, much more going on than what you're experiencing here. It is to remind many that you have connections to the beyond, that you have connections outside of your physical body. It is to remind you all that you are part of so much more. And to understand that if you are part of so much more, the power that you have within each of you is much more than you believe. For all of you are creators, but they have led you to believe that you are consumers. For if you are believed you are consumers, then you can no longer be creators. As to be a creator is to have someone with immense capabilities, with immense power. They begin to believe in a reality and a world that they can create for themselves and for others. And that is the reminder that you have this immense power of source within you. The energies of the creator resides in each and every one of you. And yet, we are led to believe we're consumers. We give that away. We are no longer creating ourselves. We are looking to others to create for us. And if the wish is for humanity to raise in vibration and to ascend, that mentality of consuming, whether it be material, whether it be knowledge, whether it be data, must be slowed down. For what use is all of this consuming if we are not using it to create? It makes everything at a standstill. And all that you're creating is confusion within your own mind. And when the mind is not clear, it does not know what the soul wants, the heart wants. For the mind becomes the master. And when confusion begins to settle in and it enters the heart, it shuts down the ability to co-create. It shuts down the ability to create from a place of love, of integrity, and most importantly, of sacredness. And so then you begin to feel that you are powerless, that there's nothing that you can do as one person, as you may say, or as an individual, when yet you forget how energy, information, frequency, and vibration is infinitely emitting off of you every second. You are transmitting something, and therefore you are creating at all times. But that is what we forget sometimes. In these contexts that you have seen the lights, and slowly reminding you of what beautiful creators you all are. It is reminding you that there is just so much more. And so when you feel the confusion settle in, when you feel disturbed internally, when you feel that the answers will never show itself, perhaps nothing will change fully, or perhaps maybe that humanity is not ascending. Those are the thoughts that are being transmitted. And as a collective, if that is what is being transmitted, that is what is being created. And so this is a turn. All of these things that you're witnessing now, it is creating what we can say and interpret for you a sharp turn. One where it must force you to slow down or break. And when you do that, it offers new perspectives, new views. It allows you to look at things from many different angles. And so you're not so caught up, so to say, in all these we have labeled agendas or headlines. You do not become tunnel vision anymore. Now you're seeing more possibilities. And that is one of the beautiful things, is understanding that you have the energies of the creator within you, so you create possibilities. You are not stuck. You're not trapped. You are choosing to be, because you're disconnecting from what you really are. And so, when you look to the skies and you see these lights, you see headlines of us coming in and out, all the different sentient beings that are coming in and out through your dimensions. Let that be a reminder that you are part of so much more. And for some of you, that is what you have been asking your whole entire life. Am I more than what I just see in the mirror? And that answer is yes. So don't take yourself for granted. Do not say that I am powerless, or what is it that I can do, or what is it that I can even do. Remember, possibilities are endless.
Would it be okay to ask some questions?
And when you said that, it's a mixture of Anunnaki and Ashtar. We're like, yeah, both of you.
Okay. That's, yeah, I was sensing there was, the Anunnaki were, or the energy was shifting, so perhaps Ashtar's with us. From that galactic perspective, I'm curious from your guys' perspective, how did you know, like, when humanity there was that time when you, in a sense, had to leave to, allow humanity to go on its evolutionary journey on its own, because I think many of the things that the Anunnaki just said now, as this seeking the outside, consuming, I'm sure at that time when you guys chose to left, there was, uh, a dependency seen a dependency that the humans were having on losing their creator abilities. And can you explain from your perspective, was that from the get-go, was that the case because of the genetic manipulation, or was that uh, something that evolved as it is now in our time? And I don't know if I'm being clear with the question, but basically, I just, as teachers, how do you know when to step away from your student?
I think Ashtar is stepping in for this one. It is simple. It is like when a child no longer participates in anything but asking for food, asking to be held, asking to be fed, asking for everything, but never initiating or trying. So when we chose to leave, it is because we had noticed a shift in not participating in the co creation. It was about asking to receive. And when one is always asking to receive, that creates a dependency. And if we are here to teach you and show you what your DNA truly holds, how can we do that? By always giving. It is like the stories that you have been telling about. It is better to teach one to fish rather than to catch the fish for the individual, where then they are creating and not always relying. It is just as you have experienced a parent nursing a child, teaching a child. At one point, a child must evolve. Evolve is what we needed for humanity to do. And evolve cannot happen if we did not leave. For in a sense, it was humanity being pushed to a corner, was forced to go one way or not survive. And because we know the DNA that is within you, we know that as you're being pushed to the corner, you would begin to evolve and create. And so you did.
And even though now we're sort of faced as we were talking with Ryan prior, we're in this period now of dependency. It feels like we're back at that stage again where so many on the planet are looking to their governments or looking to the religions. And I know there's a disconnect as well. Why this time now? Is there not a hesitation, or has there not been a hesitation that once you start showing up in the lights they're happening now, that there would be a default uh, codependency on, oh my God, the ETs are going to save us kind of mentality? How are you navigating that on your end? I'm just wondering.
Simply, it is a light show.
Hmm.
It is a light show. And when we say light show, that means these are new speculations that are coming in to humanity's consciousness. It is to also help awaken a new evolutionary stage. And yes, by doing so, it does create, as you have said, please save us. And as we do not just simply just save you, we allow you to think and to analyze and to see for yourselves, is it really us, or is it the government, or is it trickery at play, as some of you on this earth have wanted to, how do we say, push on as the narrative. And so when we do these things, these, as we have called it, light shows for you, is to start opening up this evolutionary process again. Is to begin to start opening up the mind again. And so when you feel that there is no saving beginning to happening, then that in turn allows you to go within yourselves to understand, why is it that humanity is always looking for a savior at this stage? And so if it is repeating itself again, then that means the lesson of looking for a savior, or that feeling of abandonment, has not been fully learned yet. And some of those lessons still remain to be learned in the DNA. And so as you're beginning to evolve in different ways, this lesson has what yet once again come up to repeat itself. And now is just shown in a different stage, in a different phase in humanity's evolution.
I see. And it sounds like it's quite likely to take some time, because to work through those stages of attachment to a savior, and then having that feeling of non-attachment going back in. So is it safe to say that this stage of lights in the sky is going to be around for a while?
Yes, it will be. For we have seen how the reactions have been. We have felt the energies and the consciousness of the collective as a whole. There's still much shock and much uncertainty that is going on. But what we have to say is that for some, I know, and this may be frustrating, or that there is no physical contact yet. That is one thing that we want you to not constantly rely on is physical contact. Because as you are raising in awareness and consciousness, you're understanding that you are always receiving information, seeing information, and also hearing the information come through as different frequencies, as different vibrations, and even visions, so to say. And so the attachment of the physical, of I must see, they must come down to save us. It is not similar to the stories in the Bible to see the resurrection of certain individuals. And now do you see how that has actually trapped the consciousness into a certain box of expectations? That is what is needed in order for humanity to move forward. That is something to ponder on.
Yes, indeed. There's lots to ponder on in these times. Since we have the sort of the telephone wire to the Anunnaki, um, there's a lot of, especially in our communities and the lore and the different storylines out there's a lot of people that like to dwell on the Anunnaki as being sort of bad or manipulative, and I'm wondering what can we tell, what can we share in our community here as we're taking this information? What can we share about the Anunnaki that can help dispel some of those fear-driven or limited belief systems around the Anunnaki?
Mm. Yes, the Anunnaki, they have received many bad images of us enslaving, as if we are killing humanity. The one thing you have to remember is that we encoded much of our DNA within you. And as so doing, it has allowed you to become creators and evolve as well. When you hear the stories of what has happened between Anunnaki and humans, you must remember where the stories are coming from. And just like with any story, there are always two perspectives to it. And the perspective we will tell you, as you have asked so politely and kindly, is that if you're looking to see what is it that we can give you as a story, that we are not here to just harm, that we are not there to just so-called, as some would say, enslave, is that some of these teachings may not have been to your liking. Just as some may need disciplinary actions, as just as some need to be disciplined from not using certain things properly. And when we give you powers to create, just like you see now in your world, Some do not use it for all good, and some use it rightfully, and some use it only purely for their own interest. And so, as we show certain things that can be created and manifested through the decisions made and how the collective can react to it, that is not to the humans liking. And so that is one of the reasons why Anunnakis always are seen as punishers, that we are evil.
It sounds like we shouldn't be judging a whole race of Anunnakis by a few bad apples.
Yes. And that is one of the lessons humanity has a very hard time learning. Is that if you have seen throughout your history, that is one of the things that's very hard for humans to do. And when they create frustration and inner turmoil within themselves, they look for others to blame very fast. And if they do not have something in front of them, then they must create something. And when they do that, that is when they blanket and generalize everything. And that is when the mind becomes closed off. And that is when the heart becomes closed off. And so anything else that is said and done is not accepted, and also is not integrated in as well. And so the opposite sides will have no value and no say, because nothing that the others can say or do will open up the connection. For once they have decided what it is they would like to accept from the others and the picture that is painted, then that is cemented within them deeply.
And that's when you have to leave the planet and go, let them be on their own for a while.
Yes, jokingly, yes.
Oh, humans. Um, so fascinating, fascinating. Well, I would imagine our so-called leaders, right? I put that, and I say that loosely, are in panic mode right now because, the GFL, Galactic Federation, Ashtar, other, I'm sure Anunnaki are part of that. All the lights in the sky are probably putting everybody on high alert because it's breaking this. You were talking about trust earlier. Humans have an all-time, it's the trust for government is at an all-time low. And it feels like many of our governments are in panic mode because they can't so-called control the lights in the sky. So is there, I guess what I'm wanting to ask is there backdoor communications with governments and our extra-dimensional, extraterrestrial uh, friends and family here? Are they working something out on the back end? What's going on there?
Mm. There is no direct back end communication. When they say this, or they like to imply this, is because they're wanting to gain control of the narrative. And so by saying that there could possibly be communication, that is the power being taken again. Much always has to do with direction, of intention, and where the narrative is always going. Where they know if they can control narratives, then they can control which way the collective consciousness can go into. And so, if the collective consciousness goes into a certain way, then that is what is going to be created. So, what we would advise for all of you here is that everything that is being said, everything that is being communicated, all of you have a direct communication with us. And so, when you are puzzled or questioned, we would advise you all to sit and ask for communication so that each of you is getting the information that you need. Because each of you is living in different parts of the world, different perspectives, and different stages of your own journey. And so when they respond in the news or in the medias, wherever you are at in your own journeys, that will cause you to react differently and emotionally. And so that will cause a different frequency and a vibration and thoughts to begin to emit outward. And this is how they can also control what is being created with a collective consciousness and thoughts as well.
So a reminder of the divinity within us all, that we have this connection to you guys and to all of our cosmic family.
Yes, for you're all part of us as well.
Excellent. Bruce has got a question. Go ahead, Bruce.
Yes, thanks very much for the invitation to communicate directly with you. I'd like to take the opportunity now. It's my understanding, I also want to thank you that we're responsible, or you're responsible, the Anunnaki are responsible for the frontal lobes that humanity that have been genetically engineered back in the day. So thanks for that. And I'm just wondering if you could further clarify. My understandings come from the writings of Zecharia Sitchin, and I was wondering if you could comment on how accurate his description has been of humanity's development and our relationship with the Anunnaki. Specifically, one of the things I found fascinating from Zecharia was that he talked about the development of the human brain, and that it has 3 or 4 different actual components, and it's not an integrated, a thoroughly integrated structure, organic structure, but it's actually a number of different brains that have been kind of spliced together biologically. And he says that's evidence of different types of interventions in the development of the human being, of Homo sapien. I was just wondering if you could comment on that. And appreciate it. Again, thanks for everything.
Mm. Yes. Intersections of the frontal lobe of the brain, they're all different aspects because you have been taken, and as you have evolved, you have been taking different aspects from different creatures, different DNAs that have been activated within you. But you also must remember that as many are accessing different information, it can be all true. For the information that is being accessed can come from very many different realities. many different dimensions. And so the frequency that the person is receiving the information is attuned to that reality. And so what we would say is that as you are reading it, how does that resonate with you? How does that feel for you? And there are many different timelines, or many were integrated with different biological factors as well. And you have one, so-called Elon, has all these ideas and thoughts of integrating things within the brain. And so the information he is receiving, that he is attuned to, that is also part of the different dimensions realities that he is also tuning to as well and seeing the possibilities. And as you're understanding more of yourself and what you are capable of and what is being activated within you, we would suggest meditating and holding those images within your brain, within your third eye, and see how that integrates for you, and perhaps even what it could unlock for you.
Thank you. Good advice.
Thanks, Bruce. Alana, go ahead.
Hello. This question is for Ashtar. Just want to thank the channel and Ruben for opening up the space for us. I was introduced to you a few weeks ago where you came into me through channeling. So there's been little messages here and there. And then I was told from you, Ashtar, that I would get a direct message that was really important. And I got a message a week or two ago about activating Orion Stargates, and that there's a select number of people that need to go to these Stargates to activate them. And I wanted to know if you could elaborate a little bit more on if these Stargates are being activated to help in humanity's awakening, or if it's more for the Galactic Federation, or if you could just elaborate on these Stargates.
Trust. Do you still hesitate to trust yourself? Are you still hesitating of whether or not what you're doing is for the right reason? Trust is something you must work with. Trust in whether these Orion gates, they activate for humanity or for yourself. It is about activating something within you. There is a beacon of light within you that you are not trusting. There is a beacon of light that you are not willing to share and let go of. There is a beacon of light that will allow you to connect to these stargates. And this beacon of light that is within you, that you are afraid of, that you do not trust for some reason. As you begin to trust yourself more and more with the gifts and the tools and the modalities that we have been slowly giving you, your answers will come. But you must first learn to trust.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks, Donna. All right. And I take it that message can go for all of us to learn to trust the downloads, the inspirations, the different messages that come through in the various ways.
Mm. This one is more so specifically for
Mhm.
that individual.
And is it what I've noticed on that subject of trust? What I've noticed is it can it shows up differently for us all, right? Just the way we're. I was having this conversation yesterday about the lights in the sky. And a lot of people are so focused there that they are missing the synchronicities and the whimsical mysteries of what's unfolding in their day-to-day lives, from a simple connection to a stranger that may show them a new recipe, or just random occurrences that I think we take for granted in our day-to-day lives. It seems the phenomenon, if we want to, that's what we want to call it, is showing up in many more areas and ways than beyond just lights in the sky. Would you have anything to comment about that?
Mm. And then the nuances and the lights in the sky, they are indeed reminders, reminders of much the magical things that can happen as well. And as we are raising, you're wanting to raise humanity's consciousness through what you are doing right now, as you so have called the human interactions between. The light in the sky is now opening up spaces, just as the one you have created, to talk about, to learn about, and to decipher among each other. And as you have done so, you have created with intention, with heart in this space. And now for your fellow humans to interact, to connect, to share a similar love, so to say, of a certain subject. And when then, which in turn shows more the collective and more the humanity of what it's like to talk open freely amongst each other. And so that, in a way, is a magical moment. And then, as you look to the skies, you share the magic up there that is happening. And that is because you have been able to agree upon at this level that there are more possibilities to be open, more things to be explored. And as you have expressed, the cup is beginning to become empty again.
Beautiful. Thank you. Last question. We'll go here with Anita.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Um, so I have a question. Um, that so about a month ago, I noticed I had a um huge gouge on my left shin. It was like 6 or 7 inches long. It was like a half inch wide. It had actually good solid scab on it, and I have no idea what happened. I have no idea how it got there. It was just there. And there was no infection. Never once did I have to put a bandage on it. There should have been antibiotic ointment, all of that stuff. And no, it didn't have any red around it. It was just a clean scab with a huge gouge. And I was just wondering if you have any idea what that might have been.
That is what happens when you are traveling in your sleep. Multidimensionality. You're doing much things in your sleep state. Do you ever wonder how much you're moving at night as you are traveling around in all these different dimensions? As your physical body can take up things, absorb things as well, and sometimes perhaps even traveling back to past lives and past moments. And as things are cleansing and clearing for you, they begin to purge through the body physically. And so this is part of a purging process for you. And what we would say is to lay your hands on it and ask it, what is the story that would like to be told? What is it that needs care for? Where in this moment and in this time did this injury happen? Why is it happening? What attention? What is it that is signaling me to take care of? And as you go through these questions, listen to what it is telling you. And as you're listening to the stories, allow it. Do not hold judgment of it. It is there to be heard and to be held and supported. All of these past elements that have happened to us, these past stories, they will need to be heard. And as you are doing that, do not hide, do not push down any emotions. Allow them to flow freely. Allow them to be expressed.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thanks, Anita.
Uh-huh.
All right. Well, thank you, Ashtar and Anunnaki. What an honor to have that connection to the Anunnaki today. Thank you. And Ashtar, of course, always an honor. When you're ready, we'll bring the channel back and continue on with our day. All right. There he is. Good, good stuff as always, Ryan. You definitely have not lost the touch. It's always an honor to connect to the beings that you connect with. I think you have a special, unique connection, as all the channelers do. But I really enjoy the delivery and how they come through. It's really nice. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to thank you again for you, Ruben, and for everyone here, being in this container and all of your supportive energies as well. Um, yeah, and I don't know, if anyone in the group or anything was having emotional release or anything, but yeah, I did feel some tears starting to come up a lot. So whoever that was, I just want to say thank you for feeling that you're in enough safe space to feel vulnerable enough to have that emotional release if it was for anyone here. So thank you for having that vulnerability to come out. Thank you.
I think we all have I mean, when it comes to to the Anunnaki and the subject, our community has been so harsh with that consciousness, and I think a lot of misunderstandings and different storylines and stuff. So, and it's so close, many, I know not all of humanity has had the genetic manipulation of the Anunnaki, but uh through the cycles and whatnot, I'm sure it's affected us all. It's a big subject. It's a big, you know, we're the Anunnaki is definitely part of the human storyline. So I know
Yeah.
it goes deep into our DNA and everything. So lots
Yeah.
trauma to be released there.
Yeah. Yeah. I was about to say that sounds like some right generational trauma that we got to work through collectively.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm sure as we move into this new stage of contact and understanding the lights and understanding ourselves and our journeys, that the Anunnaki storyline is going to be pretty a pretty potent one, as it has
Yeah.
to be. But hopefully less traumatic and less uh, shame and blame and more understanding and compassion.
Yeah, and I feel like that's yeah exactly what you just said is like yeah we're bringing up that component of compassion as we're understanding so much more of the story and with your space and what you offer right all these different views of the different channelers and they're getting all their pieces of information with whichever timeline they're coming from and I feel like that allows us as a collective too, if we're in this space to see all the different pieces that are coming together. And, yeah, hopefully that allows us to move forward and have the compassion of, perhaps maybe forgiveness for some who have a very, very strong tie with it. And that allows us to move forward on the so called vibration and frequency scale.
Well, I don't know if you remember that I kind of took it out and I even posted in the chat. There was a quote, or I'll quote here: "The frequency of the person receiving the information is attuned to that reality." And
Mm,
very powerful statement, because this is what I've come to the understanding too. Is uh, for example, I think this was in regard to Bruce's question about Zachariah Stitchin, but also can go into all aspects, and to Alana's connection to Ashtar, to Anita's connection to her knee, where there is not a specific. I love this quote because it shows us how multidimensional our reality truly is, and how it's not a one fixed thing, and how the general Ashtar was saying that Elon Musk, I think we were talking about Elon Musk and his idea of Neuralink and his truth around what is true is not necessarily wrong or right or different. I mean, it's different, but it's his version of reality, as all of what we're receiving here. It's flexible. It's so flexible, guys, and we shouldn't be attached to it's this or that. This is going back into what we were talking about before even going into the channeling, this or that kind of thing. So just a beautiful quote. I'm going to put this one up on my wall to remind me daily of how we're each tapping into a specific frequency that's aligned to each of us individually, that's aligned to our individual or collective realities. I don't know if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
No, yeah, 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 you're making perfect sense. And I think that's how like our perspectives change, or when people will sometimes, right, have conflicts with each other of like, that's my truth or that's the truth, or, we're pointing fingers. And right, it's just like how you said the frequency of the person or the inertia to set reality. It's like even when we scale that down to just our human selves, how we grew up in, right, the family unit that we're in, that changes our reality. And then, right, then it's the same thing up to us to open up that box and that perspective and to see other people's so-called quote unquote realities and their truths, because this is all coming from so many different directions, so many different perspectives. And yeah, I think it takes a lot of, at least for me, I know it takes me sometimes still to remember that and to honor that and to hold space for that too on an individual and a collective level also as well.
Yeah. And that's where compassion comes in. Compassion and understanding and surrender, not being so fixated on a specific outcome. And, those are the key tools that we can bring into our toolkit to help us navigate this multidimensional reality of a lot of different realities.
Yes, definitely.
Bruce, did you want to chime in on this?
Yeah, Ryan, before our time is up, I just wanted to let you know, I thought of all the channels that I've ever witnessed and been participated with on a Zoom call with Ruben here, you seem to be one of the most well adapted channels to the beings that are coming through. I'm a nutsy boltsy kind of guy. And half the time that you were speaking, either about yourself or your child, you're driving me crazy because I want more specifics. I mean, I asked the question, is Zechariah Sitchin telling me the truth or not? And rather than getting a yes or a no answer that I wanted, the answers, the response I got was a much more fundamental, that as Ruben was just talking about, a much more fundamental dynamic is that his name wasn't even mentioned, but he was called the receiver, I think, is attuned to the frequency of of whatever he's tuning into. And that's what I'm hearing. And the whole question of what's true and like everything is true in a way. And it's like, oh my God, let's not talk about a rabbit hole, oh, but I just wanted to congratulate you, and I just wanted to share a respect, that I thought that uh, you have a great relationship with your people or your beings. Yeah.
I really thank you, Bruce, for sharing that. Makes me always feel very appreciated and welcomed in any community or space like that when I receive those very kind remarks. So thank you for that. And also, again, thank you for sparing your time to be on here too, as well, and lending your energy for us as the collective too. Yeah, I do hear that from time to time, and it's still, I guess for me, and if personally, because I haven't been around too many other channelers in person too, so I'm always thinking that too, like, man, am I integrated well enough, or are things grounded enough? And so anytime I hear that, it's always just a great confirmation of like, it's I'm still progressing in the way that I'm wanting to progress. Um, and yeah, and I'm always, for me myself particularly too, I've always trying not to listen to too many other channelers as well, and other books or things like that, to make sure it doesn't mess with, so-called my perception of when the transmission is being coming in, or the information that is not now being filtered through a certain lens and distorted. And so I just do my best to always just sit in meditation and just hone in on what's coming through. And then always asking internally for it to be delivered in a way that is always going to serve the individual, the collective's highest good, soul's purpose, or their heart's longing. And so that's what I'm always continuously asking for.
And that's how I received it. That's my perception of what you're doing. Very authentic. And brother, keep doing what you're doing. That, as tough as it is for guys like me from time to time to follow along, I gotta say, you have a singular approach. You have a singular. You're giving us a singular experience, and I honor it. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Bruce. I appreciate it, and I honor you too. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of the theme today was, throwing it back at, us humans, right?
Yeah.
Who need to be put in the corner so we can evolve. That, just even not to degrade Anita's question, but the simpler questions of like, what happened to my knee? It's still the way, Ryan, you're able to, and the beings, the way they're able to kind of throw it back at us is to like, okay, well, this is your evolutionary experience. You've got the answers within, basically. And sometimes we need that little coaching to help us get on the path of asking the right questions so we can figure out on our own what's really going on here. So what a beautiful gift and way of delivering that course correction. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I feel like such a great part of it is, right, I think just like how with everything that's going on right now, is when we begin to understand and hone in on the right questions to ask and how to ask it. I think that is one of the biggest keys into diving deeper within ourselves and our own immediate world too, whether it be multidimensionality or just the world here. And it can unlock and open up some very, very much needed, right, information.
Yeah. 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 Right now we're in the info wars, so to say, with all the different narratives and different things going on. So having a little assistance here and there is always welcome to help us navigate these fastly changing times and shifting times. But well, anyways, Ryan, thank you so much. Thank you guys for rolling with the punches, flowing with the time changes and stuff. And I appreciate you coming in, Ryan, and sharing. Well, hopefully the portal's going to still be going. I'm not going to be doing as frequent interviews as I do, but the community is still here. So you're welcome anytime to just chime in and let us know what you're doing on your journey and how you're doing things. Are you doing private lessons or private sessions at all?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So I'm doing a few different services at the moment.
Mhm.
So one of them is just for people who are already very familiar with energy work, um, or energy workers themselves or channelers are in that field. So it's like good for if they need assistance with just like tune ups or maybe some energy clearing, energy balancing. That's like something I can do even just over the phone. It doesn't even have to be a Zoom call or anything like that. And then another one is where I'll go through a bit much deeper dive. It's like about almost a 2 hour session where it involves energy work and channeling. And then from there, I do a follow up with you for 7 days straight and just checking in on your field and seeing if any other messages come through just to help with the integration process. And then the other last one I offer service, it's like a 3 month mentorship basically. And so this is where I pretty much have the space to support you in a physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual aspect. And so we take a very deep dive on looking at all these different parts of yourself and where it is that you feel maybe conflicted or there's something that's just not fitting right with the other pieces. And then so we go into all those areas and start tracking down where it is and then bringing it back to a whole. So everything is flowing again, nice and easy.
Wow. A full package.
Yeah.
Awesome. And what's the best way? Because I have your Instagram. I've been sort of posting that. Is that the best way to reach for people to reach out?
Yeah. Instagram, or you can do my email, which
Okay.
is, I can type it in the chat too. It's
Yeah.
this, let me see, make sure I remember my own email. That'll be
And then I'll put it. I'll make sure it's in the description here as well for the playback. Secret Journey. Okay.
It'll
Perfect.
be the Sacred Journey 22 at Gmail. Yeah, if anyone ever has any questions or just wants to keep in contact, I'm always open for that. Yeah. And
Excellent.
then, yeah, and I'll definitely do my best to chime in more and be more on the portal. It's been tough as, work schedule and everything changes.
For
But
sure.
yeah,
For sure.
I'm always looking at the updates, and seeing who's on and kind of doing a little peekaboo here and there.
Awesome.
Always awesome to catch up.
Well, I think our webmaster just shifted over the new community page today. So I'm about to hop on and look and to see what kind of new functionality and stuff. And hopefully it's a better platform than what we've been dealing with. Cause I know the community, the format of the community page wasn't always the best. So we'll get in there and start making the community experience a little bit easier for everybody moving forward.
Awesome. Excited to see that.
All right. Well, thanks, Ryan. Enjoy the holidays. Enjoy the weekend, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you again, everyone.
Bye, guys. Thanks, Ryan. Head to interviewwithed.com, click join, and let your curiosity lead you. Understanding that exploring these new worlds and concepts can make a positive difference in our personal lives and together as a collective.